So my name is Bart Mruz. I was born and raised in Fremont, Nebraska. I had two wonderful parents. They were actually two generations older than me. I was one of five kids and the last one to come along. We range in age from 74 to whatever I am. I don't really talk about that too much. My father referred to me as the caboose. So I had two wonderful parents, Gene and Walt Mruz. My dad died in 1995 and my mother died in 2022. She lived a long life to 95. My parents saw events from the Great Depression when they were small to my dad being part of World War II. When your parents are actually gone, you appreciate even more the things that they taught you and what they did to make sure that you had a great start in life. And they just raised us with a great work ethic, to respect people and enjoy life and family. Family was a huge thing for them. The one thing they instilled in us too is a real strong belief in God. When my mother became to the point where she was really starting to decline, it happened really rapidly. And we were spending quite a bit of time with her. She made it to her 95th birthday on February 22nd. And 3 weeks after that, she passed away. We were with her when she died, but the miraculous part of her story is what actually happened the night before. My sister and I were the last two to leave that day after spending some time with her. The whole family had come up, and we kind of had a feeling we were running out of time with the hourglass, so to speak. We were getting ready to leave, and my mother was in a trance-like state, and her head started rocking back and forth really rapidly on her pillow from side to side. And right when I saw this happen, and she was looking up at the ceiling like a little child would look up to its parents, I had a thought that they were coming to get her. And by they, I mean the other side. My sister managed to convince my mom to snap out of whatever trance she was in. When the nurse came in, I asked if I should stay the night if my mother was going to pass. She said no, that mom would be fine, and she was hooked up to all the materials she needed to, get her medications and keep her health going. The next morning at about 6 o'clock in the morning, the phone rang, and I was staying at mom's house, and sure enough, it was the hospital calling. They had told me that my mother indicated to them that she would like to die and would like all of us to come up and see her. I was so taken aback by that because, we'd just seen her the night before, but I kind of knew what was going on. We raced as fast as we could to get to the hospital, and imagine our surprise when we walked in her room, and I was expecting to see her flat on her back on her deathbed. She was actually sitting up in bed, very calm, and just looked at us and said, "Oh, hello, good morning." And I think my sister and I, we were the first two to arrive, and we were caught a little bit off guard by this. And so we walked in, and we just asked her what was happening. And she just started to tell us this story about how she just went off on this wonderful adventure the night before. We were pretty much convinced that she had an out-of-body experience. And the first thing she said to us was she was in a tube and that all her clothes were white. And right when I heard that, I realized, oh my gosh, she left. And she told this wonderful story. She was with five other people who were dying as well. And there's a part in the book where we have confirmation that that was true. Things happened after she died that either people indirectly made comments that confirmed that. A number of obituaries in the newspaper confirmed it. But just knowing what happened and who she met when she was on her little adventure, our father was one of those people. My sister had made a comment to her as she was telling this, said, "So you did see Dad?" And Mom was like, "Oh yeah," because Mom had an ongoing joke with our father about, for the last 28 years, that he wouldn't lower the rope to her. That was her comment to people, meaning that he would lower this rope so she could crawl up and join him. And so my sister asked her if she had seen the rope, and she says, "Oh yeah," and he took it back. My other sister-in-law walked up and asked Mom, she says, "Well, are you ready for heaven?" Mom just made a comment. She said, "I hope it's as beautiful as he said it would be." So that led us to believe that we knew Mom was on the outskirts maybe of heaven, but not directly inside. But my dad was assuring her that it was all going to be wonderful and more beautiful than she could ever imagine. I think that helped her calmness as to why she chose to leave, because it had to be something so wonderful and brilliant to leave her family behind and her life here, because she was the true mother hen. Any of us, even though we're all over 50, if we needed our mother, she was there. I know there's a lot of people that when a parent dies, it is a major impact. There's no other way to describe it, because a piece of you goes with them. a piece of your comfort and your security goes, just knowing my mother had this experience that she had has comforted me in a lot of ways. I felt like I was living in a movie the day that it all unfolded, and right down to the miracle we talk about in the cemetery after she passed away. It's all in the book. I was sad, and I've had sad moments, but then I have joyous moments because I think this was God's way of telling us that he had our mom and that she simply went back to him. We all miss her terribly. She led a good and long life, but most importantly, I think had I not had this experience with her, I would have been one of those people too that would be really having a hard time moving on and grieving and wondering what happened to her. And the book too is a sign of hope for anybody who loses a parent suddenly. I've heard from a lot of people who have, and they read Mom's experience and then they realized that their own parents probably had the same thing. And that has helped me too. But moving on after a death like this, you smile and you cry at the same time because it was something really wonderful and it was holy and it was godly, but it still was a death. So hopefully it brings hope to everybody. It was so wonderful that I knew after she had died that I would have to do something with what she told us and make it a little bit of a tribute to her life. Also remember my dad, even though he'd been gone for so long. One of the most beautiful experiences to be with someone when they actually die. And after she had passed, Mother's Day 2022 had been almost 3 months since Mom died. Well, 2 months, since Mom died. And I sat down in her chair at her kitchen table with her candles she used to light whenever she had to watch church on TV. And for 3 hours that felt like 15 minutes, I just typed and typed and typed what all I could remember from what she told us, and the story just flowed. And that became the catalyst for the book. So after Mom told us about her story, I realized on a personal level, my whole life I was told that I should go into writing. But after hearing my mother's story, I knew that even though I was 30 years late to the dance, it was time to do something and write. And she captivated me so much with her demeanor. And that day in her hospital room, there was no fear, there was no anxiety. There were no tearful goodbyes. She just laid down and went to sleep. And knowing that that was my mother, and I think I knew her really well, and she knew me really well, this was like one final gift I could give to her by writing this book, both about her life and her passing. I worked with a wonderful publisher in Omaha, Lisa Pelto of Concierge Marketing. She actually guided me through this whole process, and it meant a lot to me having a publisher where I grew up and being part of Nebraska, because Nebraska really is home. But the response to the book and just knowing that it gave people hope and helped people who had lost loved ones, that was the big thing for me. But the biggest ones that touched me were people that I randomly met, and they read it and then they called to tell me what happened to them or how it helped them or similar scenarios. So it's also something that I wrote to honor my mother, but it ended up being something that helped people heal. To this day, I still have random occurrences multiple times a week with people who either read the book, have comments, want to talk about different chapters in it. And I think this one woman who led such a simple life, it's a wonderful tribute to her that so many people have enjoyed her story. So thank you again for watching. If you haven't checked out the book, it's allmyclotheswerewhite.com. It's available also on Amazon. And I would love to hear from you if you actually do get the book. Please don't be bashful about writing and letting me know your thoughts. And everybody has a way to relate to this story, whether they've lost a parent, in many cases a child. It makes me happy to hear from people who share stories and that the book has helped in some way. Definitely appreciate you taking the time and wish you well.